doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
I'm going to turn to Paul now. Paul, I'd really like your insights and input. I mean, you are the president and CEO of the CFA, Chartered Financial Analysts Association globally. So education, market innovation was your day job for a very, very long time. We speak about a number of these issues, and our heads always try to be 10, 15, 20 years ahead of where we are today. So I'm really looking forward to some of your comments on that. But two things I'd like you to address. Again, in keeping with your 2 minutes with the heads of state, what are your top 5 trade-related ecosystem problems that you feel RegTech could solve, and what business models would you apply to that? And then back to my initial point, how can we foster closer partnership between market participants, RegTech investors, RegTech developers, regulators, and then be able to draw the distinction between a regulator and a policymaker? Over to you, Paul, sorry.
Good day to everybody. It's wonderful to be addressing you. I'm actually speaking from Hong Kong at the moment, and I think that's interesting. We are a part of China, and I think China has many touch points of similarity with Africa in that, as some of the panelists have mentioned, I mean, what we're involved in Africa is trying to leap over various stages of development, avoid the bricks and mortar stage, and move on to new business models. And I think it's very instructive to think about some of the developments that have occurred in China, because they have had and coped with many of the issues that we've talked about. I mean, essentially for me, RegTech helps increase consistency, produce scale, widen the distribution of products, develop new products, and above all else, as other panelists have mentioned, build trusts. When you look at all of the surveys of professionalism and the professions that people trust most, financial technology, or technology in general, is always right at the top of the tree. So I would certainly urge that upon, if I had that 2 minutes with heads of state, Hubert, I think that would be my first message, that through technology you can actually build trust between all participants in the system, but most importantly with the investing public. And so I think that's a very important message. One of the challenges that I've seen around the world is that there is a huge chasm, to your second question really, between the regulators and market participants. And I obviously come from the financial services world, and nowhere is that more apparent than in that area. Regulators in finance tend to overemphasize their role in controlling the market and underemphasize their role in developing the market. On the mirror image of that, professionals, unfortunately, financial types tend to overestimate or overemphasize the role that their own profitability plays, and underestimate the fact that their main function in life is to help economies grow. So what needs to be done between regulators and the industry is for the industry to recognize that actually finance isn't set up to benefit financial people. Finance is set up to benefit the economies that we all serve, and regulators need to pay more attention to market development and less attention to market control. And I think if we can have a more constructive dialogue around that, a more regular dialogue around that, then I think a lot of those problems can fall away. Turning to the things from a finance perspective, I mean, everyone has mentioned, or a lot of panelists have mentioned, education. The democratization and access to education, I think, is the single biggest thing that RegTech can do. If you think about everything that we've just gone through with COVID, all of the homeschooling that our children are enduring at the moment, you think about that business model multiplied by a million times. You can bring Eton College, the best school arguably in Britain, you can bring Eton to billions of people going forward quite literally. And I think that's the biggest issue, that's the biggest challenge that we face, is how do we democratize education? I look at it really from a financial perspective, but we now have this wonderful opportunity, not just of increasing financial education around the world, but we have this opportunity of democratizing education from Form 1 all the way through to university. And I think that's the opportunity that the world can't afford to fumble. Secondly, I think Michelle absolutely nailed it. Blockchain for contracts is key. And I rather than go back over everything that Michelle said, which I think was absolutely right, I would add to it labor contracts. I think that's a very important business opportunity that too often, particularly in the developing world, labor is insecure because of a lack of contractual relationship between employer and employee, and often where those terms of trade are unfairly changed partway through the term of service. The blockchain can help in terms of securing contractual rights on the chain so that there is no argument as far as that is concerned. Payments, absolutely essential. Again, Michelle said it, there's absolutely no reason why we can't have a Pan-African payment system that is secure. Turning to a little micro idea, really, KYC, AML, again, Michelle mentioned that, but just think about that in terms of financial markets, in terms of people trading on stock exchange, the need to retailize our financial investors in mutual funds, pension plans, and stock exchanges. AML, KYC challenges fall away in a new technology environment that will help mobilize retail investors much more creatively than we've ever done in the past. And then an idea that's slightly to the left of center, the securitization through the blockchain. You can securitize all types of assets. You can tokenize assets. That's a sort of a development of cryptocurrency, if you like, but tokenizing things like cars, houses, businesses, so that you can give access to those SMEs, those SMEs can get access to microfinancing, is something that is very definitely there today and an enormous business opportunity for Africa's investment banks. And then the final point that I would make is that through technology, access to all for insurance, housing loans and consumer loans, again, is a very obvious financial good that should come out of RegTech. But to do all of that, you need a regulator who is excited by the opportunities behind technology and is working in partnership with a finance industry that first and foremost views its function in life as adding value to the communities that it serves. And that's basically where I think we can marry these ideas of regulation and technology better.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor. Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
Hubert, I can come in on the Ghana question.
Okay.
So that's year of return. I think certainly from what, I'm not Ghanaian myself, I've been to Ghana several times. I love it. I think one of the, sort of feedback with that initiative is that it's really helped to connect, for example, the diaspora. Often sometimes when we talk a little bit about Africa, the diaspora sometimes is a little bit kind of left on the side there, but I think the diaspora, for example, plays a very, very critical role in terms of growth as well. If you think about things like remittances and, amount of remittances that go, the flow of remittances and all that coming from either migrant workers and a whole range of other things, certainly the year of return, I think, exemplified the importance of ensuring that connection. And I think a lot of other African countries, I think, can actually implement similar initiatives, I think, to support and incentivize, diaspora and others to actually start to contribute to what's happening on the continent. And of course, a lot of people who are in the diaspora might have been, away for quite some time, so are probably a little bit unfamiliar in terms of what's happening on the ground. So I think that initiative is a great, great example in terms of connectivity. As we move ahead, we need to be able to, to connect a little bit better and ensure that there's a bit more contribution. So I think there's been some positive returns from that. And even in terms of sort of GDP and growth, I think they generated quite a lot of, revenue coming out of that activity from the Ghana side.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.